It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha. Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Brouhaha. Dale McKee over there and me, Marshall Wood, ready to break down some things that's going on in the world of sports. Dale, how you been doing, my friend?
Doing well, Marshall. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. You've been keeping the torrid schedule running all over the country, and it's good to have you back gathering up sports information from coast to coast. You've been coast to coast in the last couple of weeks, haven't you?
I've been to the West Coast to the East Coast.
Man, you ought to have some real good stories for us about sports.
Well, I can tell you about my great sleeping habit.
Oh, well. Oh, I see your sideline view. You know, you got a lot of stuff with the football stuff going on in that thing, and I guess the big news of the weekend was what happened to the Rebels. They're not flying quite as high as they've been flying.
Yeah, well, you know, our guest is going to really go into detail about it today. That's Harry Harrison. He's a former Ole Miss player. All-American, by the way, and now he's doing the color commentary. So he was up close down there Saturday night in Baton Rouge, and you know, that game was strange to me. First of all, it took so long. There were so many delays, so many penalties, so many players on the field being hurt.
Yeah,
quote, hurt.
Yeah. This is taking a lot of heat over there.
Yeah, you know, I don't know, you know, and. I was, after about the first quarter and Ole Miss only had like a 3-0 lead, I knew that if LSU stayed around to the fourth quarter, it was going to be problems for them.
Yeah.
And that they needed to, you know, keep churning. But they missed some golden opportunities in that first quarter. You know, they probably at least left 7 points on the board, you know, or maybe more.
Yeah, the great ones don't do that.
No, I mean the true disciplined winners just don't drop possible touchdown passes and you know, and I'm like this, when you're playing on the road, you get every point you can, and I'm not fussing about Kiffin's style or anything, but I just think the last several years going for it on fourth down and long 1 or 2, you know, they don't really have that great a running game this year. To me, they don't. Now
the offensive line.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think you ought to take every field goal chance that you get. And you know, he went for it 4th and 1 and 2. And you say, well, you know, you're a coach from the stands. You know, I understand that, but I'm just saying when you play on the road, you get every point that you can.
Yeah. Well, they came up short.
They did.
Yeah. So everything. But anyway, what else is going? Georgia won. What do you think about Kirby Smart shoving the football player?
Well, I think I don't know, he wasn't thinking, you know, I don't think he did it intentionally. That was the main thing. I think he just, you know, it was just one of those
things. We do a lot of things that aren't intentional.
Yeah, and you know, kids when they get in fights in high school sometime, it's how do we say it? Don't let 5 seconds, you know, determine your fate for you know the rest of the year, 9 weeks or what it is. So you know, I know that was bad. I'm not going to defend Kirby on that.
I got a printout of a news story. Calls him out for Georgia head coach Kirby Smart to be suspended. What do you think about that? Do you think the opposing player should be suspended?
Well, I think that he's probably some discipline should come down.
Who will do that? The university or the?
I just think they're in a bad situation because I think the SEC is got their wall. I mean, got their back to the wall this week because who does Georgia play? Play Texas.
Yeah, they playing without their coach.
You want to suspend him for the Texas game?
What's right and what's wrong?
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is that
you don't think the university will do it.
No, I think somebody else is going to have to step in at least this week.
Yeah.
Now, if they suspend him for a game after the Texas game,
see, that's nothing.
That's nothing. You know, that's just not that. You know, if you're going to suspend him, go ahead and say, okay, you're going to have to sit out Saturday.
Yeah.
You know?
What would you do?
Well, I mean, what would Jim Harbaugh do at Michigan last year when he had to sit out 3 or 4 games?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? I don't.
What
know.
is the rule? Is it a rule against?
No, I don't know if it's a rule, but it should have been unsportsmanlike. Like, where were the officials?
Yeah.
You know?
They didn't even throw a penalty.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I guess I'm just saying is it against the rules written that a coach can't shove or hit an opposing player?
No, I don't.
If it's not against the rules, how can you punish them?
I don't think it is, but an unsportsmanlike. But if they didn't call a penalty on the play, have a flag to, unsportsmanlike conduct on the coach.
Yeah.
You got one.
There's nothing, like you said, there's nothing on record saying he did anything wrong. So it looks like they're gonna let him go, set him free.
Don't do it again.
Looks like Kirby's gonna be all right. Well, what you got for us in the way of guests tonight? You've already mentioned that.
We have.
Yeah. Tell us again.
All right, we're going to have a former Ole Miss All-American football player.
Where's he from?
Harry Harrison. He's from Bay Springs, Mississippi.
Bay Springs, Mississippi.
Yes, sir, baby.
Man, that's
he's from the Bay.
Practically a neighbor. Well, I tell you what, we've had him before, and he's a good one, and this is a good time to have him. So let's take a break to hear from our sponsors, and Dale and I'll be back with tonight's guest, Harry Harrison, right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Harry Harrison, former Ole Miss Rebel and now a color commentator for the Ole Miss radio network. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Good morning, Dale and company. Yeah, glad to be on with you, man. It's been a long weekend. But anyway, it's Monday, the sun's up, let's keep rolling.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, there's always other games, unfortunately. But why don't you recap your thoughts? You were there at the ball game. I know you probably didn't have the best seat in the house, being about 3 miles from the field. But just tell us your overall thoughts, offense, defense, coaching, special teams, anything that you want to talk about.
Dale, it's always a tough place to play anytime. I think we were 3.5-point favorite. After seeing LSU play South Carolina, seeing them play USC earlier in the year, I thought we were the better team going in there. But, you got to go play those things, and that's a tough environment to play in. 102,304, I think, was the official attendance, which is a sellout. And as always, it was loud. I thought our defense, to give you a big synopsis of what I thought. I thought our defense played well enough to we could have won the game. I thought our offense was very sporadic. We were a big first quarter team scoring-wise, and we were down the red zone twice and came away with no points, and just breakdowns on the offensive across the offensive line. On the 4th and 1, we had a wide receiver playing wing back. He's supposed to pick up the defensive end. He allowed the end to run inside of him, tackle from behind. And still we were ahead of the entire game. You just felt like we never quite put them away. It felt like we never could get that second half two-score lead, and that's exactly what happened. So we got the kick and field goals in the second half instead of coming away with touchdowns. So we never could get a two-score lead. And, they did a good job of, I think it was 4th and 5 when Nussmeier made a really good throw where this guy could catch it in the end zone to tie the game up, and you tip your hat to them for making that. Pretty well covered. I thought we had it pretty well covered, but we didn't get any safety help. I don't know where our safety was at that point. I don't get a chance to look at the film back. I did tape it, so I'll get a chance to look at it again if I choose to do that. I'm not sure I will do that, but so it was. We had our chances. Can't complain about that. I thought the breakout for the game for the Rebels was Ulysses Bentley getting a chance to play again. Not sure why that's not happened prior to Saturday night, but as you can see, we had a 50-yard run early in the game, put us up, and I think he had over 100 yards rushing in the game for 10 or 12 carries, and that was a plus. I obviously 6 sacks in the game. Our offensive line didn't play well, and we didn't get a running a couple times. Parrish didn't do a very good job picking up the outside units and got blown into the quarterback. So, Jackson Dart made some good throws, missed throws. Right off the bat, we threw our biggest weapon in Trey Harris, and he's got a post route, and he's 2-3 yards behind the defenders and drops one, and then Jackson just threw in beautifully to him, dropped it right in there on him, and he won't drop that thing 1 out of 100, but he did drop that one, and that's the one that counted, and that kind of set the scene for the entire night offensively.
Well, of course, that's a good recap of the ball game because everybody, especially if you're an Ole Miss fan, after the ball game, they want to blame this or this portion of the offense or this portion of the defense or ever what it is. But it seems like that it was really confusing there in the overtime that we couldn't get a playoff there to start with. I know the crowd is loud and things like that, but was there some miscommunication during that time? Because
it wasn't about the crowd. They practice on a solid count, so the quarterback's always clapping. That's what you go on. But we were going to the line of scrimmage, letting them line up, and then our offensive coordinator up to the booth was making some changes. We signal in the play, okay? So we've got 3 guys on the sideline. They're going through all these different motions, and of course the quarterback and receivers and running back know which guy's legit. There's 2 more giving signals that are not legit. So we kept going to the line of scrimmage and waiting on them to set up defensively, and then we were checking out of whatever maybe we had called and going in. And so we were getting deep into the snap count, play clock, and that got to be an issue. And then and then our center got a holding call, and then he got a legal procedure call back to back. So all of a sudden we're back out there 40-yard line, and I mean our kicker makes an unbelievable 58-yard field goal, I think it was, to even get points out of the overtime. But you can't get into that situation. And let's talk about it. The game had rocked on well over 4 hours. Everybody in there was worn out. So it was like, okay, what's this thing the most? And our offense, once again, we had those 2 penalties back us up. And then the guy makes a 58-yard field goal to get us points. So that was a good start. But, if you got to lose in overtime, I'm glad it was the first play.
Yeah,
get you out of your misery for sure.
Yeah,
well,
and then 30,000 people spill onto the field. I don't know what that cost them, but quite a bit. And you guys may know that. I don't know that yet, but they got to pay Ole Miss a fine. And then I got to come out of the press box and walk across the field to get over to our locker room to get out to the bus. And you got to go listen to all that. Of course, those guys have been drinking since 8 o'clock Saturday morning. Now it's about 11:30 Saturday night.
Welcome to LSU.
That was not a pleasant exit either.
I bet it is. Well, listen, just from the release that I received from the SEC commissioner's office, that LSU will be fined $250,000, and per the league policy, that check will be sent to the opposing team. Now, I'm asking you, I wonder if those checks actually get transferred, or if there's an unwritten rule in the SEC between ADs. Oh, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay us. But in this time, whenever all these schools need money to buy players, send it to us.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not turning $250,000 checks down. I'd be real proud to see coming. I'd be shocked, actually.
Yeah, that was surprised. Yeah, it was their second offense. Yeah, and the third offense.
Sure.
And the third offense is $500,000, and every offense after that will be $500,000. So that's going to start costing the university some money. I think the first offense is $100,000. So most teams in the SEC probably already on the second, maybe going for the third, because it seems like every weekend somebody's doing the flare. What'd you think about the first Texas-Oklahoma SEC ball game?
Didn't get to see a lot of it. Obviously, it was a blowout by Texas. I thought Oklahoma won that game last year, so I thought it would be a fairly close game. as it turned out, it was not. Quarterback for Oklahoma, freshman, is really struggling, finding his way. What little I got to see, I was really watching the Alabama-South Carolina game, and before we left going to the stadium, and South Carolina certainly had a chance to tie that game up, and the receiver was open in the end zone, and another redshirt freshman quarterback for Carolina overthrew him. I think he threw it up the third row of the stands, but anyway, it was another nail biter that could have come down to a tie and went to overtime. It didn't, but I don't have a lot of comment on the Texas-Oklahoma game because I didn't get to see much of it. It was, I think, a 2:30, 2:45 kick, and by the time at this point we're scurrying to get to the stadium, and so I didn't get a chance to see much of it. Didn't see the final score. It was 34-3, I believe. So I was expecting a much closer game since they're rivals, regardless of what league they're in now. They've been rivals for a long time, so I was expecting a much closer game.
Well, listen, did you see the clip of the Kirby Smart kind of shoving the Mississippi State quarterback? Is there a policy against that?
I don't know what you're talking about, actually. So they kicked off about 15 or 20 minutes after we did, and I think their game got over 30 minutes before we did. So I did not get to see any of that. We were in the booth, and we had the monitor on. So I have no idea what you're talking about, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologize. I didn't actually see it happen in live action. I saw some clips of the Mississippi State quarterback, Van Buren, running out of bounds, and he was fixing to go back on the field, and it seemed like Kirby was pushing him on out there. And don't you think he was trying to help him get back in the I do. Well,
good job, son.
Yeah. Well, we were just saying because no official threw a flag, and we were just wondering if there's no flag thrown, can they really say something to Kirby about it? Except he may want to apologize, or something like that. No, we were just discussing that before on the first part of the show. Yeah.
Did they ask him that question in the post game interview?
They asked him, and the state quarterback said, he pushed me, but Kirby said, well, it was an accident. But if you look at it on a clip, it sure didn't look like an accident. But anyway, so I'm looking at the top 25 yesterday, Harry, and I see all these teams here, and there's two teams with 2 losses, Ole Miss and Michigan. So Michigan's like, I don't know, down there in the 20s, 21, 2, 3, something like that, 24, and we're 15th. So at least people kind of are keeping Ole Miss almost in the playoffs situation if we can get, a few more wins. If we would lose one more, does that eliminate them altogether?
I would think so. I'd certainly think, you lose to, you go into the season looking at the schedule, Dale, obviously LSU's a tough place to play. Arkansas is a tough place to play, but Arkansas, South Carolina, Kentucky, they were all ranked in the bottom third of the league preseason rankings. As it turned out, Arkansas is playing much better than everybody thought. But I know how hard a place it is to go to Baton Rouge, Columbia, South Carolina, and go to Fayetteville. But if you're looking at our schedule, okay, who are the 2 toughest teams you're going to play? LSU would probably be one of them because it's down there at night. Then you would think Oklahoma and Georgia, right? So you lose to Kentucky right off the bat. That carry one of your hall passes right there, and then at that point you really can't have another loss. And if you have another loss, you want it to be Georgia ranked in the top 4, 5, or 6. But obviously we lost to LSU, so now you have no more hall passes there. You got to run the table now if you have any idea of all of getting into the playoffs. That's my opinion, of course, but I don't think anybody outside of 2 losses will make the playoffs.
Well, there's some big games this weekend as far as the SEC schedule. You keep looking every weekend, and it just seems like, man, we got some great games going on. But this week it's Georgia and Texas and Alabama and Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean,
I think that's
if Alabama or Tennessee, one of them's going to be 2 losses after Saturday, and Georgia could be 2 losses. So, all of a sudden you got a lot of these 2-loss teams still in the picture, and so the third.
Well, I think we're in the picture with 2 losses. You said 3 losses. I think 3 losses would eliminate you.
Yeah, I would think so too.
But it's still a tough schedule in this SEC. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But if you're looking at the playoffs from a national scope, and Big Ten has got some teams in there. Ohio State now has a loss, but somebody's got to beat Oregon. I don't think they have a loss yet, do they? So,
no, they don't.
You got to get some of those guys for 2 losses and get them in the same position some of the SEC schools are. But you're right. After this weekend, Georgia potentially could have 2 losses. Alabama could have 2 losses, or Tennessee. So it puts us kind of all right there together. But I think as long as you can keep it at 2, if you go 10-2. Then I think you got a real shot at getting in. But if you 9-3, I don't think we'll get you there.
I got you. Well, listen, the transfer portal, the NIL, all this stuff. What impresses me about college football sometimes, and you have to get up pretty early sometime to watch these teams. But a team like Army that's 6-0, and a team like Navy that's 5-0. What impresses me about that? There's no transfer portal, NIL for those teams. They can't go out and get new players hardly. They can't go out and, walk in and tell a kid, okay, hey, listen, we're really not going to need you. Maybe you need to go, enter the transfer portal and things like that. That really impresses me about college football. Do you think Dabo Swinney's going to have to kind of change his outlook on the transfer portal, since he doesn't seem to want to do that, or you think he's comfortable in his situation?
He hasn't called me to ask me that, but I think it's been a good thing for schools like Ole Miss. But these schools that are getting these 4 and 5 stars up and down their roster, they may be able to recruit high school players and bring those guys along. The problem with that is there's only so many 5-star players and so many 4-stars. All of us don't get those. And Dale, the other thing about trying to look forward in a high school kid's career, I mean, how do you analyze and say, okay, in 2 years or 3 years, here's where we are? Well, we don't have 2 and 3 years anymore. Everybody wants to win right now. So if you go in the portal, you at least got some collegiate tape to look at and see what this guy has done and what he's capable of doing. So does it cost some money? It really does cost some money, and the collective's got to be right on top of that, and that separates a lot of schools too. Maybe Dabo Swinney thinks old school. He thinks he's going to continue to do that through the high school ranks. When you look at Mississippi, we got 2 SEC schools, and it's down in South Mississippi. Southern Miss is always going to get a player or 2 that maybe we were trying to sign, but you just don't have enough numbers in our state, so you got to recruit. Nationally, you got to go into Texas and Florida and places like that. But still, you're still taking an 18-year-old kid that might not be able to play for 2 or 3 years. And so how does that look on your roster? The interesting thing with this revenue sharing, which is coming up, I think starts in the fall of 25, and the scholarship limit, it changes from 85 and goes to 105. So, now are you able to take more high school players? Probably so. Or if you got the money, can you get more portal players? People got different ideas about how to stack that roster. And fortunately, the Rebels have got a general manager named Billy Glasscock, who came up from the University of Texas, and Billy helped put that roster together. So he told me in preseason, if Texas doesn't win at all, he said it'll be a shame because they've got the roster to do it.
Yeah.
So can Ole Miss build that type of roster? We hope so going forward. Once again, the collective's got to have some money, but this revenue sharing, I think, is $22 million, which goes to every sport that you have. I would think football would get the majority of that, but every athlete's going to be subjected to having some of that revenue sharing. So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger from the money standpoint, and then I guess your NIL would kind of go on top of that when you're out recruiting portal players. So Dale, it's the genie's out of model. I don't think you get it back in, but every coach has got a different idea about how you get that roster built. Dabo Sweeney, I think, had 2 portal players. He played against Georgia, but things didn't turn out too well. He's got back in the ACC, and he played pretty well. So we'll see. At the end of the year, there'll obviously be a lot of conversation about rosters and how you built it and where they came from. So we'll see who wins out at the end. But Army, you don't go get a guy who really is not a very good academician and get him in the academy. Right. They're a little bit different animal, but they're having a good year. Of course, they run that triple option, which is hard to defend after only seeing it for a week in practice. But, the days of you and me in college, and everybody was here for 4 or 5 years, and you cut your arm off for your school. Those days are unfortunately fading in the West, and so we'll see how it turns out. But there will be a lot of changes when this revenue sharing kicks in next fall.
It'd be interesting to see it. Harry, listen, we're out of time, man. Time flies when you're having fun, and Dale and I have been having fun as we have both times that you've been with us. We thank you for taking time out of your schedule to share with our audience the things that are going on around what you do. Thank you for being with us. We're going to ask you to hold on for just a second. Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from one of our sponsors and be back with tonight's final segment right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everybody. I tell you what, that was real fun talking to Harry. I mean, he's on the front line, son, with this SEC football, and he can tell you all about it.
Yeah, he's got a great insight. I always like talking to him.
Yeah, and he's a local guy, kind of too. We call baseball.
I remember when Waynesboro Central went over to Bay Springs. I guess it was Harry's senior year, which would have been probably 1969. I think it was. I remember Waynesboro had a quarterback by the name of Williams, Gary Williams, and I remember that part about it. And I think Wayne Central was undefeated, Bay Springs was undefeated, but Harry played quarterback, running back,
just whatever it
yeah,
takes.
I mean, he did what it took, and I think they ended up shutting out Wayne Central that night. And I think they went on and won the Cotton Valley that year.
The Bay Springs. Now, Wayne Central was the Panthers. What's Bay Springs?
The Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs of Bay Springs, Mississippi.
Yeah, and Harry was widely recruited. The Georgia Tech was really after him. If you remember, Warner Alford used to be the AD at Ole Miss. He was an assistant coach there, and Harry was. He really liked the way Warner recruited him, everything, but. He said, during that time, Archie Manning was playing at Ole Miss. It was hard to turn down Ole Miss.
Oh, yeah. I imagine it would have been.
Yeah, very, very, very hard. And that was probably one of the really good recruiting classes that they had that year, Harry's year.
Yeah.
And everything.
Well, Dale, I hate to tell you this, but we're about out of time. I'm sure I've had a good time visiting with you tonight and talking and stuff and listening to our tonight's guest. He was a real treat, but... we also want to thank our listeners out there for joining us tonight. And remember that you can follow us on our Facebook page at the Brouhaha. Listen to all the shows that we have cataloged on our what is that thing we got? A YouTube channel called the Brouhaha. You can check us out there as well. But again, special thanks to Harry Harrison. And now it's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, folks. We'll see you next week for more Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.